Hi everybody, I have been hard at work on getting one of our first relationship maps together. I picked the Gottman house, the relationship house done by John and Julie Gottman, and it's quite involved. It'll be really super useful. I'm excited to bring it to you, but as I'm working on it, I realized Valentine's Day is coming up, and it's kind of a fun thing to write a little love letter or make your Valentine's card wonderful and very powerful and impactful. So I'm going to throw together a quick little video here to help everybody make a Valentine's card that's based on those basic principles that are in the Gottman house. We'll talk about the Gottman house later in the next video, but you can actually put those principles to use right now, right in time for Valentine's Day. So we're going to start with a tiny overview of the Gottman house, an introduction to what it looks like. It's been updated a couple times, and then I've added a little extra section, so that's going to be fun to take a look at. And then we'll head into looking at each specific aspect of the Gottman house, and we'll describe what it is, what it's meant for, and then the specific skills involved. Then for each one of those skills, I'll ask you some questions to help you think about what your partner does really well and how that strength might look in a relationship. That should give you a good foundation to understand what's going on in your relationship and with your partner and see their strengths clearly. And then in part 2, we'll go through them all again so that you have the opportunity to translate what you saw into an expression of gratitude or just a celebration of who your partner is. And I'll be giving you some phrases and some ways of putting things that might help to actually write the letter. Don't worry about step 2 while you're doing step 1. And once you've done step 1 thoroughly, then step 2 will be much easier. As we talk about that, please use that pause button a whole lot. So I'm not going to pause long enough for you to think and write. So use the pause button so that I can say my little thing, and then you take a minute to really think and write if this one resonates with you. Oh yeah, they're good at that. And let me actually get those details down on paper. Pause, pause, pause. Hopefully you can put your own spin on it and make it really personal to you so that it is something that feels like a really good fit for you, your partner, and your relationship. The most important thing to remember that the goal of this exercise is simply to highlight some strengths and express some gratitude so that you can help your partner understand just how much you appreciate them in specific ways that are related to their specific strengths. The more specific you get, the better it's going to be. But let's remember as we go through all of these different possible skills that every relationship is different, and not every relationship is going to use all of these skills in exactly the same way or at the same level of intensity. So think of it like a football team. Some teams have a lot of really fancy stuff. They do trick plays. They have this thing and that thing that they do. And some football teams, it's just fundamentals, fundamentals, fundamentals. You have 2 or 3 really useful skills that you use all of the time, and it works for you. And your relationship might be either one of those, and it doesn't really matter. So if you are one of those fundamentals relationships, you do a few things really well and that works for you, great, not a problem. That's a wonderful way to have a successful relationship. Another thing to remember is that every person on the football team doesn't have to have all the same skills. So some people are going to be really good at defense. Some people are better at offense. Some people can run really fast. Some people can kick really great field goals. You don't have to have all the skills in order to be a really good player on the team. And that's also true in relationships. So when you're thinking about your partner and some things that they do well, you might encounter some things that they don't do very well. That does not mean you are doomed. You are fine. That is something that you can work on if you want to, but right now the important thing is to just highlight their strengths, the things that they do that helps your team win, helps your team be a winning team, a successful relationship. Before you even start, you're going to want to promise yourself that you'll stay out of negativity. This is not an opportunity to compare either them with the ideal that you have in your head of a partner or that you want them to do, or with something else. It's a positive experience of expressions of gratitude and acknowledgement. So we all as humans have a tendency to move our brains in the direction of I wish I could, I hope, I want. That's a fine thing to do. but that's not what we're doing this time. Stay out of negativity if you can. And if you do encounter something and it just hits you really hard, there's something to sort of grieve there that you really wish and hope for, but it's not happening right now. Acknowledge that that's okay. Get the most compassionate version of yourself in your head to say, it's all right to want that. It's okay to hope for that. And give yourself a little hug and say, we're going to move in that direction if we can. Take a deep breath, center back around positivity and acknowledging and seeking strengths so that we can express gratitude. That's the exercise today. The good news is that if you do encounter something that you really hope for but isn't happening, John Gottman and Julie Gottman have wonderful resources. I'm going to give some more resources and even some expansions about some of the things the Gottmans mentioned. I'm going to add to it a little bit in the videos that are coming up. So there'll be lots of opportunities to really understand more about that particular skill and to hopefully work on it together later. This is laying a good foundation, starting with gratitude, starting with kindness, starting with acknowledgement of something that somebody is doing, trying, and does well. Start with the positivity. Let the negativity be set aside and we'll handle it at another time. As we're thinking about that, one of the most important things we're going to do as we move through these different skills and see how they're set up is to stay very, very honest. This is not a way to nudge your partner in the direction of doing something you want them to do. Most people will not take a compliment unless they agree with it and it resonates with their own experience. So you're going to want to pick things that they also understand that they do well and not pick things that they kind of maybe do well or that you think they should do better. That's going to backfire on you really quickly and just create shame instead of that sort of pride and excitement about doing a good job. So focus on honesty, focus on the things that are just complete shoo-ins. What do they absolutely do well and that's simple, straightforward, and obvious? And those are going to be your most successful things. The key to having it be powerful then is to acknowledge something they do well that they pretty much agree with you about and to give lots of good details. How did it make you feel? We're going to say that a lot. What happened? We're going to say that a lot. Really good details are going to be the key for this to be a really successful, impactful experience. Just to do a little bit of an introduction first, this is the Gottman house, and it has 3 different parts to it, and we're going to go through each part separately, and I'll show you using all these great diagrams. The first part of the Gottman house is the foundation. The foundation of a relationship is really important because it is the thing that supports all of those other things you're trying to do. Most people want to start by working on their communication, but communication doesn't go very well unless you have that strong foundation of friendship and of caring about each other. So the first 2 floors of the Gottman house focus on building an understanding and a feeling of caring and affection towards your partner. The next section of the Gottman house is the sturdy walls and the interior. It's the part that both holds up the roof and connects everything together and the part that makes your life easier to live. So fixtures, windows, doors, all those sorts of things. And they think of that as our day-to-day interactions, how we interact with each other and the little things and the big things we do in order to come together and solve problems, make things work, all of that sort of stuff. The next section is the roof, and this is a shelter that helps us to weather the storms of life, and it's found in our meaningful interactions, our shared values, our hopes, our dreams, our goals, the things that make our lives really fulfilling and joyful together. The last section is something that I added because I came to realize that underneath this foundation, you really do need a bedrock of personal integrity, of being a person who can do the hard work and show up in a relationship in really healthy ways. And that takes a lot of personal growth and personal strength. Recognizing that who you are has to bear the weight of what you want. The bigger and more grand and more wonderful and more sturdy your house gets, the more strong and honest and good and caring you're going to have to get. So we work on ourselves, and that allows us to make our relationships better. The First part of the foundation of friendship is love maps. And the first skill involved in creating great love maps is just creating a space to communicate. So, creating the circumstances that make it not comfortable for people to actually communicate with each other. That's a skill. It's a really important skill. So, how does your partner actually make that kind of thing happen? They set aside time, they help you be comfortable, minimize distractions, make sure nobody's hungry. What is it that your partner does that helps the communication just even happen? The next piece of love maps, the skills that we use in order to create a better understanding of each other, is asking really great questions. So, harnessing the power of sincere interest. When is a time when your partner seemed sincerely interested in you and wanted to know more and was getting good at asking the kind of questions that bring you a little bit below the surface? Another important love map skill is listening, and this is using your attention to learn. And sometimes we think of this as a very basic thing, but how do you know your partner's really listening? Giving them that specific feedback can really help build trust in the relationship. Also, sometimes it's nice to focus on what they're not doing because there are a lot of things we can do to disrupt listening or to let our attention wander. And so sometimes it's nice to say thank you for the things that they don't do or don't allow to happen because keeping that focus is so important. The final skill and really the essence of love maps is that we use all this listening and all these great questions in order to really understand our partner. And so asking yourself, what does my partner actually really know about me? They know all my preferences. They know my tender spots, the things I'm worried or scared about. They know my joys. They understand my past. They know my goals and my hopes. They understand my strengths. There's things about my physical health they're really up to date on. So, how do they keep themselves up to date on who I am and what's going on in my life? The next part of our friendship foundation is fondness and admiration, which is recognizing the characteristics of your partner that you really appreciate. You don't want to just know about your partner, you want to care about your partner and communicate that caring. We all need to work on feeling fondness and admiration and caring, but we also need to know how to express those emotions when they come up. So, understanding your own emotion deeply enough to communicate your experience of it and then translate that experience into clear, specific signals about what you need, what you want, what you hope. Those are essential skills if we're going to actually succeed at fondness and admiration. So, they don't have to be deep and awkward, but what emotions, like liking or enjoying or respecting, does your partner actually feel and is able to communicate with you, even if sometimes it's hard? An important part of this friendship foundation is the skill of feeling and showing respect. That's acknowledging that you're worth treating well and really protecting the dignity of your partner and showing them the courtesy due to any fellow human. So, how does your partner do those things? You might have to think a little bit because sometimes this basic acknowledgement is hard to see when we're used to it. The Gottmans often lump fondness and admiration together, but they're really two separate things. So, one of the skills you can build is fondness, or recognizing and enjoying the unique attributes of your partner. Basically, it's liking your partner. So, how does your partner show that they like you and enjoy being with you? If it's hard to think of those things, maybe go back to the beginning of your relationship because most relationships start exactly this way, with an expression and a communication of, hey, I like you. Admiration, on the other hand, is something that is specific to competence or talent or skill or virtue. So, how does your partner show you that they admire when you're good at something, or that they appreciate a talent of yours, or that they're inspired by you being virtuous or good, or the good things about you? The next section of the Gottman house has to do with the walls and the interior. And this is something that you work on after your foundation of friendship is sturdy. Then it's much more effective to work on those day to day interactions and the way that we are with each other and the communication part of the relationship. First part of that is to turn toward each other. When we turn toward each other, we're responding positively to bids for attention or support or comfort. So when there's a question or a problem or just a need or a want, then instead of turning away from each other to get that need met, we turn toward each other and interact with each other and help each other meet our needs. In order to really turn towards each other, you're going to have to get good at asking for support. So there's two parts to that. being aware of your own needs and wants and dreams, and then also discovering the best way, good ways, better ways to actually ask your partner for the help that you need. So if you think about your partner, is there a time when they asked you for help? What about how they asked made you want to help them? And then are they adjusting to meet your preferences as they do that asking for support? As we're turning toward each other, responsiveness is the flip side of asking for support, but it's even more broad. John and Julie Gottman talk about bids for attention or bids for affection. Those bids need to be responded to in ways that actually make the person doing the bid feel seen and valued. You don't have to do exactly what they want, but acknowledging the bid and responding to it in a way that's positive is really important. So if you can think of times when your partner did a good job of hearing your bid for attention or affection or support, and then specifically how did they respond to it and how did that feel for you and what worked about what they did. Safety is absolutely one of the foundational aspects of any relationship. But it's in this section because one of the major ways we create safety is by turning toward each other. And it doesn't usually happen without that foundation of trust and caring. There are many, many parts and pieces to safety. It's a kind of a complex idea. There's lots of ways to create it, lots of ways to destroy it. But one specific example you could use in this case is if you have a large relationship fear and your partner has addressed it, that was probably a pretty powerful experience that created a feeling of safety and comfort for you. The next part of this middle section is to have a positive perspective. So, having a team mindset, really thinking the best of each other, making assumptions about the other person's goodness and caring, that sets you up to be able to do the next one, which is manage conflict. This is one of the more interesting findings, but John and Julie Gottman have certainly found that having just a little bit of bias in a positive direction helps everything run more smoothly because it stops you from making really scaring assumptions about your partner and their intentions. So, choosing to assume that your partner's doing their best, they want good things for you, that the relationship is generally healthy, it's headed in a good direction, and your efforts are meaningful, you're going to be able to have an impact. How has your partner had faith in you? And how did that work out? How has your partner assumed your good intentions? And how did that work out? Another part of keeping that positive perspective is a mindset of we're overcoming together. So remember, it's not an outcome, it's actually the way you think about and approach the situation. So consciously adopting the mindset of we're a team, we face challenges and opportunities together, and then seeing those challenges and opportunities as a chance to learn and something that actually improves the relationship. So, how has your partner seen the two of you as a team? And pick one particular aspect of your life together. Most people don't do this across the board. There's probably one or two areas where you really are a great team. How has your partner seen it that way and facilitated that process? Once we've got turning towards each other and keeping a positive perspective down, we can start managing conflict, which is really just being skillful about how we disagree with each other and work out problems. A big part of managing any conflict is being aware of how we influence each other. So, the first step is acknowledging your own influence when you do things that shift what your partner thinks, feels, and chooses. And then the second part is allowing your partner to influence you and shift how you think, feel, and behave. So, both of those are important, and you can take those separately. A time when your partner was influencing you and aware of their power, and a time when your partner allowed you to influence them. Both can be very powerful. Another part of managing conflict is addressing problems when they arise. And there are many parts and pieces to active problem solving, so there's lots of opportunity in here for somebody to be doing at least one thing right. Not waiting for problems to become big and painful, identifying problems, working on them early, working together to solve them, handling their repercussions. Sometimes we forget about that part, and also trying to prevent them in the future. So there's lots of things your partner could be doing that address a problem and help things get better. Self-soothing is such an important part of navigating conflict because when I'm working on a difficult situation, I probably have a lot of my own feelings to deal with, and it's very difficult to also manage somebody else's feelings as well. So when each partner can take responsibility for their own feelings, calming themselves down, building themselves up, using their self-awareness to have integrity and connect with others in a way that acknowledges their feelings and experiences their feelings, but doesn't take their feelings out on somebody else. Repair is one of the most important parts of managing conflict, and it's one of the things the Gottmans are known for. The idea that you would take an opportunity where someone's been hurt or something is off, there's some friction going on, and instead of turning away from each other and letting that negativity escalate or just withdrawing and letting there be distance, that you turn toward each other and you address that and you work on it. And there's lots and lots of different ways to repair, but identifying what your partner's good at in the way of repair and figuring out how they've done their part to fix a situation that is a little bit off or a lot off is a really, really important part of getting to know how your partner is dealing with conflict in a healthy way. Now we move on to the load-bearing walls in the interior of the Gottman house. And you'll notice that they touch the roof, that the hopes and dreams and meaningful life that we want to create really rests on the ability to create trust and commitment. And they hold in the middle part of the house. They touch every part of the day-to-day communications and interactions that are going on, and they're firmly set on the foundation of friendship. So these are a really important part of making the entire house strong and lasting. Trust is quite simply the decision to have faith in each other, but that gets really complicated as we move through it. The first step to having trust in a relationship is to work on your own trustworthiness. There are a lot of pieces to being trustworthy, but you can sort of summarize it as I do what I say I'm going to do, and when I don't, I'm accountable for that and I make it right. So, how can you depend on your partner? How does your partner do what they say they'll do? And when they do fulfill their commitments and do the things that they've signed up for, how does that make you feel? Another way that we build trusted relationships is to invest our time, our effort, our thought, our learning, all of those things as we put them into the relationship give dividends. They help us to build a better relationship and receive a lot of the joy and the delight that comes with being close to other people. So, in what ways does your partner make the relationship a priority in their life? How do they nourish the relationship? How do they make it stronger? These might be a little bit different than the ways you prefer to do it, but they're still really powerful. And then another piece of investment is you don't want to just make the initial investment. You want to adjust over time, see how the relationship needs are changing or your partner's needs are changing, and then to invest in pivoting, adjusting, making the relationship different so that it's a better fit for both of you. When you know that somebody really understands what's happening to you, how you feel about it, and then responds to those feelings and experiences with deep compassion, that is a huge signal that this person is safe, they care about you, and you can trust them. When we're building trust, empathy is one of our most powerful tools. There are quite a few pieces to empathy, so it's okay to take it apart a little bit and express gratitude for somebody putting in the effort to understand what you're going through. Also, somebody finding within themselves a way of connecting emotionally to your experience and your own emotions, and also someone responding to that with their own sense of compassion and care. The other load-bearing wall of the Gottman house is commitment, and this is making sure that the relationship is a priority. It's high on your priority list, but that combines with actually doing the work and making that happen. So making your time and your skills, your resources, your hard work available to benefit the relationship, dedicating yourself to the future success of the relationship, which involves focusing and having a sense of purpose. So remember a time when your partner did this, committed to stick with you through it all, and what did that feel like, and how did it change the way you see the relationship and the way you see your partner? Another aspect of commitment is loyalty. So are you on your partner's side? Do you have your partner's back in big and in little ways? Do you take your partner's interest to heart? Do you stand up for them? So think of a time when your partner stood up for you or was there for you when you needed them, showed some loyalty. What feelings come up, and what about what they said and did was actually really meaningful to you? The roof of the Gottman house, sheltering your relationship from the storms of life, really comes from a sense of shared values and purpose and meaning that helps you think of yourselves as a unit and have hope for your future. In the first part of this, cultivating hopes and dreams, the Gottmans really put an emphasis on helping your partner cultivate their hopes and dreams, but then also cultivating some hopes and dreams together. Step one, if you want to help your partner realize their goals and their hopes and their dreams, you have to know what they are. And this is actually one of those little pieces that was presented as part of love maps of all the different aspects of somebody's life. This is an important one. Knowing what your partner hopes to experience, how they're building a life that will allow them to have those experiences, and then the parts of the process that are maybe difficult for them. So how does your partner find out what's important to you, and how do they respond, and how do they ask more questions and understand more deeply when you hit an obstacle or when you have an experience that you did hope for or dream of? Another aspect of being able to help people build their hopes and their dreams, either on their own or together, is to facilitate autonomy. That's because relationships are a constant dance and a tug between connection and the freedom of being a unit and being yourself. So, how does your partner support you in being yourself, following your own personal interests, growing who you are? Which of their attitudes and habits do you find most supportive as you work on being the best version of yourself? Another great source of meaning and hope is shared goals and aspirations. So, coming together to understand what is it that you hope for, what do you both really want, and then how are you going to turn those into very specific goals? What do you share with your partner in the way of desires and goals for your relationship and outside of the relationship? How does your partner help you focus on those and get motivated and even move them forward? And how does your partner check in and find out how things are going with those goals? Another powerful way to protect your relationship from the storms of life is creating shared meaning. So, this is creating a culture that is an expression of who you are together. The stronger that culture, the more you're invested in it, the better you're going to feel about your relationship. One way we begin to define and create that culture is to realize our sense of purpose. So, how is being together meaningful? How does it relate to something bigger than yourselves? Are you part of an extended family or a community that is important to you, a cause that's meaningful to both of you? Is this part of nature and your relationship to nature or deity? There's lots of different ways we can find meaning in our lives. How does your relationship as a couple fit into that? Now we're going to bring shared meaning into very concrete action. So usually it's through rituals and customs and traditions that we repeat in some way that highlight important values and beliefs that we have and create a sense of unity and belonging. So what happens regularly that brings you back to your core values and helps you feel connected? How is it that your partner's involved in making those things happen? So our final section is the one I added, and it has to do with personal skills being the underpinning for the growth that's happening in the relationship. So what are the personal attributes that you admire about your partner, specifically ones that help your relationship be better? How does their self-awareness or their courage help them to show up for you? Have you noticed their humility or a willingness to be accountable and how that makes your life even better? Has your partner done personal work to understand their own scars and fears and keep them from being obstacles to connection? How does your partner take care of themselves physically and emotionally so they can fully participate in the relationship instead of being exhausted or withdrawn all the time? These kinds of skills are fundamental to being able to do all of these wonderful things we've been talking about as part of building a strong, sturdy relationship that's going to last and be fulfilling and allow you to achieve your hopes and dreams. Step one is to clearly identify those strengths. Then before we do step two, we're actually going to pick out just one or two from each part of the Gottman house. One or two of the foundation, one or two of the body of the house, one or two from the roof. Just one or two from each section of the house should produce a really beautifully well-rounded, interesting letter that doesn't go on and on and on forever. And sometimes that can also feel a bit overwhelming. So let's keep it specific. Happy to have you come back to the video when it's your anniversary, when it's their birthday, and pick out some different skills to highlight. That will be a wonderful experience. So hopefully you'll be able to use this idea and this map from the Gottmans over and over again to produce a wonderful experience of connection and gratitude for you and your partner as many times as you want. So now that you've chosen just a few of the specific skills we've been talking about, I know it's a lot, it's okay, just pick the best ones, and you're ready to turn it into a letter. I'm going to take you through using some of the examples of the things we've talked about and the questions that were being asked, and just demonstrate how to translate that into expressions of gratitude that are specific, give you some prompts and some fill in the blanks. Let's take listening as an example. It's really simple to take the information you talked about earlier and translate it into, when I see you do this or that, I feel this way or that way, and that leads right into thank you. Another example is to take something with lots of options and use it as a specific. So I feel you care about me when you ask about this or that or the other thing. You can switch that up. I feel you really love me when you ask about. I feel you are interested in me when you ask about. Lots of options there. Something a little more abstract, like safety, might require you to get very concrete and personal first. And so sharing your own sense of, this is important to me because, and fill in the blank why, and then say, I appreciate what you did. And it'll make more sense because it relates to something that you already shared. But when the skill has to do with an attitude or a mindset, it can really help to tell a story. So, do you remember the specific thing that happened? Get into the details and then highlight when you did this because you felt this or you thought this or you had this attitude. It helped in these ways, and get really specific. For some of these, it might be something that you feel is actually a strength of yours, but you haven't talked about it directly, and you're not sure exactly what your partner is thinking and feeling about it. So it's okay to keep it in your own realm of, I think, I feel, I hope, this is how I'm experiencing it. And when you do this, it's powerful. And usually I want to know more, or I want to keep building this in the future. When it comes to personal attributes, the approach can be a little bit different. Acknowledging something that they're good at. Sometimes if they are a shy person or someone who doesn't believe in themselves, you can say, I see you working on this, instead of you're amazing at it. And then when I see you working on this, I feel, and then how do you feel? I feel hopeful for a relationship future. I feel inspired. I want to be a better person. I feel grateful that you are involved in my life. I feel like our kids are going to benefit from this. There's so many different ways to approach praising them for the thing that they're good at or that they're working on. You might also have to do some definitions. You can't just say things like self-awareness or humility. Sometimes people don't really know what you're talking about. So when I see you working on this, and then give an example or say what you feel like that is to you. Okay, so we've gone all the way through. What are your partner's strengths? You've got lots of options. Be specific, gather details, pick just a few in each of these categories if you can: friendship, everyday interactions, hopes, their personal attributes. And then, why are these things meaningful to you? That's what you're answering as you write your letter. Good luck. Thank you so much for doing this video with me. It was a lot of fun for me to make, and I hope that it's really useful. Please put in the comments about how it worked for you and what you would like more of. That would be wonderful. They're just skills.
That's good.